11 of the I Formation. I'm Jeff Gibbons.
And I'm John Moist.
And not a bad week out there again. 9-5 this week.
It's okay.
We went out on a couple of limbs. I went out on one, you went out on one. We sort of went 1 for 1 there on both sides. We evened up. But some pretty good games in the NFL this week. And John is going to actually come forward with his second fastest 3 minutes.
Okay, here we go. Indy and Jacksonville was the Thursday nighter last week. The Colts created 3 turnovers in this one. Controlled the clock for over 34 minutes. Held the Jags to 37 net yards rushing. Great defense by the Colts. And on we go. The Ravens' defense and special teams come up big and win the turnover battle, control the clock, and hand 55 points on Oakland. Great game by the Baltimore Ravens in this one. My Denver Broncos get the win with Peyton Manning thrown for over 300 yards once again. Second Cam Newton 7 times. The Panthers were 0 for 12 on third down conversions. Great defense by the Broncos. Next we're on to Cincinnati, where there was a giant upset. 4 touchdown passes by Andy Dalton, and turnovers were the difference in this one as the Giants turned the ball over 4 times. And Miami and the Dolphins had 4 turnovers in this game. The Titans did not turn over the ball. One of the turnovers was a pick 6. Dolphins still having trouble stopping teams on third down. And Dolphins have some talent, but not enough talent to overcome 4 turnovers. Very few teams do. On to Minnesota, where Adrian Peterson, once again, huge game, 171 yards rushing. Vikings did not turn over the ball in this one. The Lions had 2 turnovers. Ground and pound allows Minnesota to control the clock and control the game. Minnesota with a big win. Buffalo and New England, in which big surprise here, Buffalo came very close to New England in this one. Probably would have won the game if they didn't turn the ball over 3 times. Outplayed New England not allowed the ball, but those 3 turnovers were the difference. And certainly Buffalo looked good in this one, but came up short in the end. I'm going to pass this one over to Jeff right now for a minute because he picked the New Orleans Saints to send Atlanta to their first loss. And what have you got to say about that?
Time was right for the picking, I think. And we would agree right from the beginning. Atlanta, 8-0 team, but you know what? Who have they really played? And I think as a team, this game was a defining game. Drew Brees and Jimmy Graham, right? Having lots of luck looking up there this week. It was just too much for Matt Ryan and that defense.
Chris Ivory again on the ground had a good game. They found something there for sure.
I think we might see Chris Ivory again this week when they play Oakland.
Yeah. Okay. Saints are for real. We go now into San Diego. That game was played in Tampa actually. Josh Freeman was mistake-free in this one, and Phillip Rivers threw 2 picks. There was also a blocked punt return and a pick 6 for Tampa Bay, and that ended up being the difference. Tampa Bay is looking great. San Diego not so much. As for the New York Jets, oh my, their defense missed tackles all day long. Marshawn Lynch looked fantastic for Seattle. Over 100 yards and a touchdown again. Mark Sanchez is just a horrible quarterback. I'm not sure if Tim Tebow is much better. Rex Ryan, horrible coach. Actually, I think Stevie Wonder could probably read a defense better than Mark Sanchez. We go to Dallas at Philadelphia, where Dallas had a punt return for a touchdown and a pick 6 that were the big difference in that game. Cowboys outplayed Philadelphia. Philly looks awful on defense, missing tackles everywhere, not very good. Let me see, the Rams and the Niners, that was the first tie game played since 2008.
Yeah, you're right.
And the Rams defense played well in this one. They actually played good enough to beat San Francisco. Some really bad penalties taken in this one, including the one on the field goal where Zorline actually kicked a 53-yarder that would have won the game, but it was a delay of game called on it and moved back to 58, and he missed. Also a key missed field goal by David Akers, and led to the tie. The Niners are not looking as good as they have.
And the loss temporarily of Alex Smith to a concussion.
Yes, that's right. Alex Smith also down to a concussion. And the backup is Colin Kaepernick. He's a scrambling quarterback. And he may come up with a big game with this week. We'll wait to be seen. Houston wins the turnover battle with the Bears in the game that we watched there at Jeff's place.
The Chili Bowl.
That was an ugly game. The weather played a big factor in this game. The Bears did turn the ball over 4 times to Houston's 2. Turnovers were the big difference, and Texans defense outstanding. Bears defense played well too, but this game could have gone either way, decided by one score.
Kurt Warner tweeted out this week that the weather decided the game, but at the end of the day, both teams were involved in that rain and those slippery conditions. It just worked out. The Bears very seldom turn the ball over this year, and they turned it over 4 times. You're right, and that's a deal breaker. But Houston was, to their credit, able to at least capitalize on one of those with a major score.
Yes.
And again, when you turn the ball over more times than your opponent, 75% of the time you lose the game.
That's right.
Bears will pick it up.
And of course, the Steelers played Kansas City, and Jeff called last week that this game would be close, even though it was in Pittsburgh, and he was certainly correct. Kansas City took the Steelers to overtime. The game could have gone either way, and a big thing happened here was Big Ben went down to a shoulder injury, was it?
Looks like he's got a rib injury, and so the timetable is not even on the table right now for his return. So that the fact that they're not talking about that means that it could be very serious. Smoke and mirrors this time of the year when you're trying to shore off a playoff spot, but that remains to be seen. But I think when we had some banner on the site about the day about Roethlisberger's value with that team. I mean, you're right, stellar defense, but at the end of the day, Roethlisberger is a guy who's already pulled out a couple of fourth quarter comebacks, and that's a large piece of your team to remove. Jay Cutler with the Bears as well going down this week to a concussion. All of these people having key pieces in the puzzles.
And Michael Vick as well.
Well, when you look at the playoff pictures and the runs now for the teams, I mean, the San Francisco, Chicago, now Pittsburgh, all of their quarterbacks out of commission for indeterminate amounts of time. That could make a big difference to these playoff spots and how things are going to fall together.
Well, I think the Pittsburgh Steelers can win the game and go to the playoffs, win most of their games and go to the playoffs with Byron Leftwich, a quarterback. Even if they put Charlie Batch in there. All they need is a quarterback who stays mistake-free. Because they've got a great defense, their identity is defense, and I think that the Steelers will be fine.
Let's see that O-line work for Byron Leftwich. I think that Roethlisberger, part of his success, and we joke about him getting sacked so much, but you look at the number of broken plays that Ben Roethlisberger converts because he gets out of the pocket. He's a quarterback that can get out of the pocket, get flushed out, and still make something happen, whether it's a run, or a bootleg, or it's something, out to the flat, he finds a receiver, second, third choice. I don't think Leftwich has that kind of depth, so we'll wait and see how that goes.
But definitely a big loss. I'm not saying that the Steelers are going to be the same team without Roethlisberger. I just think they'll hold on until he comes back.
Okay. So that's the way you saw it, or we saw it this week?
Yes.
Stick around. We're going to talk about our picks this week because there's some really interesting matchups, and you're going to find, I think, we disagree on a few. Stay tuned.
Hi, welcome back to the I Formation. Now we're going to make our picks for Week 11. First game on tap is Miami at Buffalo. What do you think?
Kind of looking forward to this matchup. Always a good divisional rivalry in Buffalo this week. But you know what? I think Miami has been. is going to play with a bear with a sore head this week. I think after Philbin sat
Bush.
Yeah, Reggie Bush last week after that fumble early in the game. I don't know what that proved, leaving your team to get hung up by 34 points. I think Reggie Bush is going to have something to prove this week, and I think he has a huge game on the ground against this Buffalo team. I don't see this being a blowout, but I see Miami winning it. And I think you've got something to say about the defense here with respect to that. I'm looking at one side of the ball, you're looking at the other.
Well, I had a look at what the experts were saying. Most of them are picking Buffalo, and the consensus is that Buffalo will win this game. That's just because last week Buffalo kept it close against New England, and Miami got blown out by Tennessee. But this is a different week now, and Buffalo is going to go up against the Miami defense. That's one of the best run defenses in the game. They're going to make Buffalo. They're going to make Ryan Fitzpatrick throw the ball, and Fitzpatrick is going to have Miami defenders in his face all day long. And I think that Cameron Wake has a big game. I think Carlos Dansby has a big game, and I think Reggie Bush has a good game on the ground. I can see Miami running for 200 yards against this team between Bush and Thomas. And I think Miami will beat Buffalo, and they will win the turnover battle and beat Buffalo in Buffalo.
Back in the win column.
Yeah.
Next, we got Arizona in Atlanta. And I think this particular game, Matt Ryan in the Dome, not too many teams knocking him off there. He almost lost one game this year. against Oakland. That was a close game, but he threw 3 picks. He was his own worst enemy. I see Arizona with the worst O-line. You keep talking about it, during the whole season. I don't see them. I say a field goal at best. I think Atlanta destroys this team.
I agree.
Next, Tampa Bay is in Carolina.
I like the Bucks here, although I do think that Carolina at home could pull the upset. I just like the way Tampa Bay is playing ball right now. They have the #1 run defense in the NFL. And of course, Carolina is a running team. Cam Newton is a running quarterback. And I think that Tampa Bay just has a better team than Carolina. And I think they'll go in and beat them. It's going to be a close game.
Tampa Bay last week, like you say, with 2 defensive and special teams touchdowns at the punt return for a touchdown, or the block punt, sorry, and he had the pick 6. So I think they go on the road and they win this game. Cleveland is in Dallas.
Dallas still can make the playoffs. They're not completely out of it yet, and with a big win in Philadelphia earlier this week, they look pretty good. Romo actually played well for a change. Felix Jones on the ground looked really good, and of course the Browns. Way to go, Browns! You didn't lose last week. Way to go, Pat. You guys didn't lose the game last week. Well, you didn't play either, but that might be one part of it. That's the only way they're not going to lose. Dallas, big.
Yep. Green Bay is in Detroit.
Got to like the Packers here, even though Detroit has looked okay as of late. The Packers coming off a bye week. They will have Jordy Nelson back in the lineup, and not sure about Greg Jennings. I don't think he's ready yet. But when the Packers are completely healthy, they're certainly still a huge Super Bowl contender. And I think that Detroit's going to put up some points in this one.
This team is peaking at the right time. You're absolutely right. They're 6-3 now. I remember at the beginning of the season, you talked about them running the table. Remember, and they got off to a slow start, but there were a number of mitigating circumstances early in the season. And this team now is on fire. Aaron Rodgers has something to prove. He's come out and he's silenced his critics, playing very, very well. The whole game, the defense is a little more awake now. I don't even make this close. I'm thinking 10 points at least.
Okay.
Jacksonville is in Houston.
Next.
Okay. Cincinnati is in Arrowhead to meet the Chiefs. We disagree on this pick. After the performance that the Chiefs put up against Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh this week, Jamal Charles establishing himself again as a decent running back in this league, 100-plus yards this week and a rushing touchdown. I think that they give, at home in Arrowhead, where it's always hard to play, I think they give the Bengals some trouble, and I think they win a squeaker here.
Well, Kansas City is a team that's prone to turnovers, and they still had turnovers last week against Pittsburgh, and I think they had 2 in the game. They still lead the NFL in turnovers, and Cincinnati is just coming off a game where they created 4 turnovers against the New York Football Giants. And I think Cincinnati is going to be an extremely confident team going into this one. I look for them to go into Arrowhead and beat down the Chiefs.
I think Cornell crows afterwards with the ball and says they did a good job at home and they've shown that they can win a football game. But anyway, we'll wait to see how that one goes. The Jets are in St. Louis to play the Rams.
New York Jets locker room in disarray apparently this week, because we've never heard that before. Now, of course, you have the players, anonymous players, once again. And this time they're talking about how horrible Tim Tebow is. I remember last year when there were anonymous players, came out and talked about Mark Sanchez. Listen, it all comes back to the coaching here in the locker room. If your team is not on the same page in the locker room, it's the coach that is to blame for it. Rex Ryan, once again, I said before, the most overrated coach in the NFL. He needs to go. And you guys, when you're out there and you're bashing your teammates, put your name on it. Have some guts, for God's sakes.
Yeah, we're looking forward to the anonymous fans giving shit to Rex Ryan. I think it's time for that to happen. And you know what? He's got a foot fetish. He can't wait for that boot. All right.
So we both picked the Rams, obviously.
Absolutely. Hard to beat at home. Amendola's back, and he's back. Philadelphia is in Washington this week to play the Redskins.
I went back and forth on this one, actually, but in the end, I think Washington's coming off a bye week, and Philadelphia looks awful on defense. I don't know what's going on there. I don't see Andy Reid may not keep his job past this season, and I think that Robert Griffin III can put together a couple of drives. Alfred Morris, probably a big day on the ground to be the difference maker here.
I just think
LA
that
Washington.
all the talent that the Philadelphia Eagles has is anemic this year. It's absolutely anemic. From defensive line and tackles right back to your O-line. And when you think about people like LaShawn McCoy, Deshaun Jackson, Michael Vick, and nothing. I mean, Vick has dropped the ball so many times this week or this year. It's not even funny. And he doesn't drop it at the 50-yard line. He's dropping it on the opponent's 2-yard line, 1-yard line, having all these long drives that are giving them absolutely nothing, right? Except for giving them poor field position.
I think Vic might be out for this one, is he? Not sure.
Yeah, and that's right. He was another one of the many quarterback victims of concussions in the past week. Not sure how that's gonna play out. It'll be interesting to see how they make that adjustment without Vic, because who knows? Maybe it's time for a shake-up anyway. I've been on your side all along, Mike, but you're just not getting the job done. And maybe this week it might be a bit of fresh air. Next, New Orleans is in Oakland.
And I think we're going to agree on this, that New Orleans Saints are for real, and they are a contender. If they win this game, then they have won 5 of their last 6. And they are looking very good, just sent Atlanta to their first loss.
Who that? Who that?
Drew Brees. And I think Drew Brees is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, obviously. Oakland is going to put some points up in this one. I see this as being a high-scoring game. I think the Saints come out on top.
I think New Orleans' defense has gotten marginally better, and I think a lot of it has to do with the clock. I think that they're running the ball with Ivory. They're controlling the clock a little bit better. Breeze is Breeze. He's a pure passer. He gets the job done. But keeping that defensive line off the field for longer intervals is helping that team grow. And you're right, everything is starting to peak. Sean Payton, you would have been proud to still be there, because I think they've been through a lot of adversity this year. There's no doubt it's a success story if they're able to put themselves into the playoffs and make some noise. Next, San Diego's in Denver for another great matchup.
Well, San Diego usually gives Denver a pretty good game. Denver at home, Mile High, and Denver has been clicking, and they're my team, and I'm very proud to say that they're one of the best teams in the NFL right now. Peyton Manning has been fantastic. Their defense has been fantastic. Sacks, turnovers, they're playing great on all sides of the ball. And even running the ball, Willis McGahee is having a great year as well. You got Denarius Thomas having a great year as a receiver. And I think Denver will win this game by 10 points.
Agreed. Absolutely. A real contender. And like I said last week on the show, I'm scared of your Denver Broncos. Next couple we've got coming up here, we've got a little bit of discussion. Indianapolis is in New England to play our nemesis, the New England Patriots.
And he's on a 4-game winning streak.
And you know what? I'm calling upset of the week the Indianapolis Colts to go into New England and beat the Patriots. That's my call for this week. That's my gold star pick, man.
I don't see it. Although I really like that pick, I cannot see Indy going into New England and beating them.
You didn't see the Falcons last week either, but hey.
That's true. I hope you're right. I'd love to see the Colts go in and beat the Pats. I just don't see it. Gillette Stadium and Tom Brady, even though I hate him.
they're not getting the homer calls they used to get in Foxborough. That's one thing that I've noticed. And the New England game has totally changed its dynamic. At one time, it was that juggernaut team with people like Deion Branch, Wes Welker, throwing the ball 100 miles, right? And Brady just getting the job done in the air. Now we've got this running game with Ridley, and it's Woodhead, and that we had that little talk there on the page about how the Jets gave him up. Actually, Rex Ryan did, but we're not going to keep slamming Rex as much as he deserves it. I think after the game that Buffalo played against the New England Patriots this past week, and how close that was, that was a hair from being a loss for the Patriots. You take that back to the down before the interception and the ball that slipped through Chandler's hands. That was the game. kick the ball through the uprights for the extra point, and the Patriots lose. And there's been a couple of those games. They lost a couple by a point this year, too. They're not that juggernaut team that we're used to seeing. In effect, I think with Indianapolis playing the way they are, that defense, I'm telling you, too, is a little underrated. Believe me, there's glimmers of hope in that whole football system that Irsay's got out there in Indianapolis. And I think Andrew Luck goes in there like he played in Miami, and he plays the game of his life, and I think he walks away with the win. And I'm going to say it's by a touchdown.
I didn't see New England by 2 touchdowns.
Okay. You've done that before. Next, Baltimore is in Pittsburgh.
And we disagree on this one.
Gee, I can't imagine who you're picking after your big rant about the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers are still a great team without Ben Roethlisberger. I think that their identity is defense. I don't think the Baltimore Ravens have as good a defense this year as they have in the past, especially with the loss of Ray Lewis and Ladarius Webb to injuries. Going into Pittsburgh, where Pittsburgh is undefeated, and I think that Byron Leftwich can control the game. I think that we're going to see a lot of short passes, such as what you see maybe in Alex Smith in San Francisco. It's the same sort of short pass offense there. And I think that Leftwich will stay mistake-free, and Pittsburgh will ground and pound their way to a very close victory here.
It's interesting you'd say about defense and defining the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mm-hmm. Here's the thing. I mean, with the loss of Ray Lewis and Ladarius Webb, everyone talking about that really, really strong defensive line, and given offensive lines fits. I mean, likes of Lewis in your face. He's still a leader of that team. He's still out there on the sidelines. But what was a real statement this week was the fact that Joe Flacco and company put 55 points on the board this week. That was a statement. You know what? Yeah, we don't have all of our big defensive players. And you know what? There's an opportunity for some of them to be back by the end of the season. Hopefully Lewis gets back for the playoffs. I still think this team is getting the job done. I still think they can go into Pittsburgh and they can score points. Especially with Roethlisberger out of the picture now, that is a huge loss. I really don't think Leftwich is going to get the job done. Sandwich, whatever you want to call him. I don't think he has the offensive depth and wherewithal that Roethlisberger would have outside that pocket. And when he gets outside that pocket and he gets to look at Eddie Reed and hits him in the numbers a couple of times, we're going to see a different game. Okay.
I'm going to look for a game from Heath Miller, and I'm going to look for the short passing game. And I think Leftwich knows the system. He's a veteran quarterback. Hasn't played in a while. Veteran quarterback, though, and I think he can get the job done.
We'll see how it goes. It's a hard way to come in. Feast of Baltimore. Mm-hmm. Okay, last game. Monday Nighter this week. A big touted matchup, and now here we are. We're taking one gun out of each holster. We've got Chicago going into San Francisco to play the 49ers. Sans Alex Smith and
Is Cutler out?
Cutler's out as well.
Okay.
So now we're left with we're backup quarterbacks. We're left with it's a different game, and a game that means an awful lot in the big picture. But like I said before, with all of these quarterbacks going down to injury right now, really, really changes the way things could all sort of stack up in many divisional runs, and certainly with playoffs, wild cards, and all those other pieces. We both agree here, though, that I think that Chicago, coming off a heartbreaking loss this week to Houston, I would like to see that game, and we sort of toyed with the idea this could potentially be a Super Bowl matchup when we think about Chicago and Houston coming out the way they're playing right now. But having said that, let's hope the sun is shining, because I think we want the two teams to leave nothing on the field, go out there and decide it, and I think it'll be an awesome game to watch. I think Chicago has the better defense. I think that they've been scoring points off turnovers all year long, and I mean copious numbers of points, and I just see that they will just win the battles of turnovers, and you know yourself that's what defines who comes out on top. Alex Smith, they've been getting the job. They can get the job done without Alex Smith in a lot of cases, because that defense, hey, it'd be a shame not to mention their defense in the same sentence. They're very, very strong. They've, when they blanked the Jets.
Hey, Patrick Willis is
right?
a beast.
Yeah, a beast. I think that it's going to be a great close game. I think it's going to be a hell of a game to watch. But I see Chicago, and you see Chicago coming out on top.
I'm not going to say anything more. I think you hit the nail on the head. Liked everything you said about what's going to happen, especially Chicago winning the turnover battle. And pick the under, for sure.
Yes, absolutely. That's our key piece of advice for this week. That's the matchups this week. Stick around for our final thoughts.
Hey, welcome back once again. We're here with our Team of the Week and Player of the Week. Who do you like, Jeff?
This week, how can I not? With the upset of the week and the goal pick I picked, I'm picking the Indianapolis Colts this week. I'm truly confident that that whole team is going to rally. They're just growing phenoms. And I think Andrew Luck just doesn't see it any other way. He thinks he can beat anybody. And I think with that kind of confidence, with that disarray that I'm seeing and that poor secondary that the New England Patriots have been showing, and for Buffalo to put as many points on the board as they did, I'm picking them to go in there and beat New England in an upset. Who do you like for a Team of the Week?
My Team of the Week, just because everybody is going with Buffalo, I'm going to pick my Team of the Week as Miami Dolphins, because I think the Miami Dolphins are a better team than the Buffalo Bills. And I think that Cameron Wake and Carlos Dansby and Reggie Bush and Tannehill has something to prove this week as well. And they're going to be motivated, come into this game, and I think they're going to beat Buffalo. I think it's going to be more than just one score.
Player of the Week.
10 points.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Player of the Week.
Player of the Week, I like Alfred Morris, Washington Redskins going up against the soft Eagles defense. And Washington coming off a bye week, Morris coming in well rested. And I think he's going to have a huge game against the Eagles.
Okay, awesome. This week I'm going to do what you did last week, and I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to pick a defensive player. I'm picking Andy Reid from Baltimore. I think he has a huge week out wide against that Byron Leftwich sandwich that you keep talking about. And I think when he starts to get in trouble with that front defensive line, he starts throwing the ball in his numbers. I'm picking him to go run one back. Let's see how it all plays out. That's how we saw the week, folks. That's our picks. That's our player of the week and our teams of the week. Come back next week to see how we did. We've been doing fairly well for the last few weeks, and certainly for the whole season. We thank you for watching our show tonight, and we're going to leave you with something a little different this week. We did talk about the chili con carnage that was at our Chili Bowl on Sunday Night Football. It was the best part of the whole event because, well, certainly the game left a little bit desired because of the weather. But we did sort of tease you last week about our secret ingredient. So stick around and we'll show you what that is here at the end of the show. Remember to like us on Facebook. We are the I Formation, all one word. And certainly, if you like the videos, subscribe to Omega Adam 474. So, until next week, it's good night from me.
And it's good night from him. Have fun.
So here we are in the kitchen. And this is your masterpiece. I believe we call it chili con carnage, didn't we?
Yes. And during our show, I talked about the secret ingredient that goes into the Bears chili. I made it extra chunky, just like Jeff likes. And the secret ingredient in Bears chili, of course, is the pork chops.
Just my size.